Usually there is a very typical kind of an offer with how you'll be presented in front of the audience for the first time. I don't think there's a formula on how to do it, you just have to go through it. If I've never met a man in my life, I've only heard about him. He is literally the one person, my father. I'm not the first person that Yash Raj has launched, and I'm not the first newcomer that an Akshay sir is working with. If you meet me in person, I am a very shy person. Like I'm an introvert in real life.
Hey guys, this is Aina and welcome back to Pinkvilla. I have the gorgeous Manushi Chhillar with me today. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
Good.
So, Manushi, I want to start off by asking that you come from a medical background and, after Miss World, you decided to pursue your career in acting. How hard was that decision to make for you, because you've grown up with professionals around you, and what was people's reaction when you actually opted for this option?
I think the whole decision of becoming an actor, it just naturally happened. There was never a point in my life where I was like, okay, ab main actor banungi. But yeah, I've grown up in a very different environment. I've grown up around children who wanted to grow up and become doctors, engineers, lawyers. So that's what I've known. Of course, after winning Miss World and after working with them for a year, you have this protected exposure towards a very different world. And yeah, I think when you get good opportunities and film like this comes into your life, there's of course no looking back. Life is uncertain. You cannot plan things, right?
Yeah.
And destiny always has bigger plans for you. So they say that if such a big opportunity has come into your life, then why not explore it?
I'm not trying to generalize over here, but normally when girls have their debut, they will want to debut as this modern glam girl. But you've opted for a really strong character in a historical film. Were you ever skeptical about making a choice like that?
Not really. I feel like I was fortunate that there was a time when there were different offers that were on the table. Usually there is a very typical kind of an offer with how you'll be presented in front of the audience for the first time. But when a film like Prithviraj, when something like this is happening, it was less about this will be my first film and more about a film that I want to be a part of. And this was a film I wanted to be a part of. And I think the whole idea of this is my first film never had anything to do with it.
Okay.
I've not grown up in the film environment, so for me to sit and understand and strategize, this should be my first film and this should be my second, that played in my favor because I didn't have any kind of strategy in my head.
And you've also emphasized on women empowerment from the start. Even when I saw your character, Rani Sayogita, she's very, she's a warrior princess. She's so strong within herself. Can we see a little bit of your personal preferences in the characters that you're going to, take ahead? Women?
Well, I think all of us actually can somewhere relate to her. And I think that's the beauty of this character, because even though she's from the 12th century, even today, there are girls today who might relate to a character, from that era. And she is first Princess Sayogita and then she transforms into Rani Sayogita, and that journey, you'll get to see that in the film, but that journey in itself, I think, is something which at different levels all of us as women, we face and we go through. She was righteous. I think she stood up for what she believed was right. And that's something I really, really admire. I feel like people who stand up for what they believe in. There are a lot of things to learn from her, obviously, but there were a lot of similarities as someone who's born in this contemporary world where we're all taught, from whether it's in school, from our teachers or from our parents, that we need to carve our own path and we need to stand up for what we believe in. This is someone who's actually done that centuries ago.
Yeah.
So I think those were the similarities, and of course there were certain aspects that were very different. Certain things that took a while to understand that why she did what she did.
You said this one very interesting thing during the trailer launch, that now that you're getting in this industry, patience is very important. You emphasize patience a lot.
Yeah.
There were certain obstacles before the release of the film, and then COVID happened, and there were years that went into this. How do you actually get yourself to go through that and actually be patient?
I don't think there's a formula on how to do it. You just have to go through it. I don't think there's a how do I get through this. You have no option. I mean, it's life. You have to go through it.
Yeah.
But I did keep myself occupied with other things in life. The first lockdown, I studied a little bit of literature.
Oh.
You know, I thought like, why not do like go back to college? Maybe do a course from home. Things like that. You know, went back to started actually professionally learning art a little bit. I've always loved to paint, but I never got to learn.
Okay.
You know, from a professional. So just things like that. But of course, you know, when your primary work in life is you're not going ahead over there, so then that does like affect you in some manner. But I mean, now it's all done. It's all in the past, hopefully.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think you need to kind of like, you know, in life there will be times when you'll grow really fast, and there'll be times when you'll have to take a break due to reasons which might be beyond your control.
Yeah.
So I feel like you should just sometimes leave things to destiny and kind of not take life too seriously.
When you did Miss World and now that you're acting, Miss World is sort of like a beauty pageant. You require to be yourself, and now this is a path where you have to get into the skin of a character and you have to be someone else.
Yeah.
How different is that transition?
I mean, they're two very different things. At the end of the day, Miss World is a competition, and then it's a role you play for a year, and then you pass on that role to someone else for the next year. So that's very different. You know, this is a profession.
Yeah.
This is work. But much more than that, I feel like all these competitions, whether it was Miss India or Miss World, I feel like, I mean, I've not done a lot of films in my life.
Yeah.
I've only done 2.
Yeah.
But from both the films, what I've learned is, and they're very, very different characters, what I've learned is that every character, every person is justified in their own way. And you will always find in some or the other way the character is a part of you. Similarly, I feel like every character you play, the minute you start understanding, you realize that we're so similar.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure like every character is also inspired by people you meet in real life. Sometimes, you know, and I face this with Princess Sanyogita, that she literally falls in love with her father's enemy. And that's something which took me a long time to understand, that if I've never met a man in my life, I've only heard about him. He is literally the one person my father hates.
Yeah.
Why would I fall in love with him?
Yeah.
And I think that was the one thing that took the longest for me to convince myself. But somewhere, you know, through these characters, you in life also learn. You learn that, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so rigid in life or rigid in how I'm thinking. Maybe there is another way of looking at things. So I think with each character also you personally evolve.
Yeah.
But you'll always, I mean, they're both very different things. They're both, and you know, good thing is that I've gotten to do such different things in life. And I feel like I've grown. I feel the kind of experiences I've gotten at my age, normally a person my age would not get to experience all of that.
Yeah. So, you know, like you said, you can't say, who would say no to a Prithviraj?
Yeah.
You're working with such senior and big names in the industry. The production house is Yash Raj. There's Akshay sir, there's Sanjay sir. You're working with Dr. Saab. And like, you know, it can get really overwhelming.
Yeah.
How do you get yourself you know, really confident, and do you remember any day on set, or your first day on set, or you know?
I mean, of course, I remember my first day on set. I did have a good time to prepare. Of course, when you're working with people who are already so experienced and so good at what they do, you don't want to be that one weakling in the film.
Yeah.
But because they're all so experienced, and you know, I'm not the first person that Yash Raj has launched, and I'm not the first newcomer that an Akshay sir is working with. So because they also know the kind of challenges that you're facing, you know, they also kind of make it a little comfortable for you.
Yeah.
But I've always liked a challenge in life, and I think that's when you grow.
Right.
And I think that somewhere helped me. I don't know if it was overwhelming, but I did feel the responsibility of working in a film like this, working with people as senior as these, and most importantly, portraying a character as important as this. So that I wouldn't say was overwhelming, but you did feel the responsibility of all of that. And if I were to look at the first day that I actually shot, I was shooting with Ashutosh Rana sir and Sakshi Tawar ma'am, and they are seasoned actors.
Yeah.
And they're playing my parents in the film.
Okay.
And it was a very heavy scene. It was one of the longest and the heaviest scenes that I have. And it's actually an argument that I'm having with him. And Ashutosh sir can, like, when he's in character, like you're generally scared.
Yeah.
So I still remember, they both have been like very, very sweet. I think throughout set, they've whatever throughout the shoot, whatever, like on sets, whenever we could practice, they've always been ready to do that, and I've had a great interaction with them as well.
Yeah.
And hence, my first day was more about understanding technical things, more about understanding like the camera and lighting and focus and everything else. But a very, very different experience. I never thought that it's that consuming as a profession, and it's that tiring. Physically, at the end of the day, I was exhausted. I never thought it would be that exhausting.
Did you get very comfortable with the camera, or did that happen eventually? Like,
I feel like, and that's a thing it's a funny thing that I've had since childhood. I've never been scared of the camera. Like if you meet me in person, I am a very shy person. Like I'm an introvert in real life. I'm very quiet, but I feel very comfortable in front of the camera. I mean, I always have. In fact, funny thing is that when I was much younger, if I was sad or angry, or if I was crying as a kid, my father would pull out the camera.
And you would stop.
And I would just stop and I'd start smiling and I'd host my own show or do something. So I think my parents would always joke about this, that just pull out the camera if she's in a bad mood. But I feel like it's not the camera. If someone were to ask me to perform in front of the camera, I would be my confident self. But I can't do that in person, like in front of people. I think that's something which I've always had. Like I've been fairly comfortable in front of the camera.
Lastly, what I want to know is that if you had to replicate an actress's journey, obviously your journey is going to be your own and you're going to want it your way. But if there is a journey that you look up to, who would it be and why?
I think so many. I don't think I'll be able to name someone. But the beauty of life and of this profession is the fact that you all start out looking up to whoever is the superstar of that time.
Yeah.
But everyone's journey is so different. And I feel like as inspired as I am by all the women who've done great things, the men and the women who've done great things, in this profession and in this industry, I feel like I draw inspiration from all of them to carve my own path, like all of them did. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So all the very best for your film.
Thank
and
you.
I'm sure you're going to do wonders. And
I hope so.
We'll see super soon.
I hope, but thank you. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe to Pinkvilla.